How does one go about finding their homemaking style, what kind of homemaker you are, in a world that has presented us with some pretty blunted options? With too few depictions of the reality of being a homemaker, far more aesthetically pleasing tropes and sort of rehashing of old stereotypes, which simply seem to be serving to feed the narrative that homemakers are stupid and idiots and subservient in a way that is damaging to them and their children, and are just, quite frankly, spitting in the face of feminists who've fought for women to not have to live like this anymore. What does one do when you find that despite the tropes and caricatures, women are still desiring to be homemakers, are still very much desiring to be home and take care of their children and their family and their home? Could it be? I mean, I know that I'm just being absolutely wild here with speculation, but do you think that it could be because innately in many women is the desire to take care of her home, her children, and her family? Do we think that maybe just in spite of the tropes, in spite of all of that, that many women, some of whom have worked very hard, paid a lot of money for schooling, had very prominent jobs, would then leave those jobs by choice to be at home taking care of their family? I know, it's wild, right? It's crazy to think that anybody would choose this horrible, terrible life. So I'm a little hot right now, in case you can't tell, because in doing a little bit of research for a few things I wanted to share in this video, which was supposed to be far more like positive and happy and smiley than this opening seems to be, I ran across some articles that just made me furious. So I apologize for what might seem as though a condescending tone. It's not, nobody likes to be misunderstood, but being misrepresented is even more egregious to me, especially because the reasons for it don't seem based on any genuine concern for women, but more a fear of what that would mean. It's a battle to get us back into the mommy wars, and it's a lack of recognition that the entire purpose that many of us felt that feminism was supposed to be encouraging was that women would have a choice if they wanted to go into the workforce or if they wanted to stay home. I fully recognize that it's kind of a slap in the face and just flies in the face of everything that we've come to believe when we find that even with choice, women still choose this, right? We don't like that. We don't really like that because it's very hard to reconcile the idea that homemakers are somehow, again, leading this less than life if they're choosing it over what to the world would seem as a more prestigious and respected career. With that said, and in an effort to fight some of those caricatures and tropes of homemakers, let's talk about, if you are a homemaker, if you desire to be a homemaker, how to find your homemaking style. That's the point of this video, is how to figure out what kind of homemaker you are. Despite what many of these articles and TikToks and Reels and whatever would have you believe, there is in fact more than one way to be a homemaker and to take care of your home, your children, your husband, your family. Doesn't make you ignorant. It doesn't make you unambitious. It doesn't make you a clone Stepford wife, and it doesn't make you dangerous to other women and to younger generations. To choose to be a homemaker and to, in fact, love what you do and have self-respect in what you do and to value your role as a homemaker. Let me just add that I think one piece of languaging that we could change that would maybe help a little bit in the conversation is to stop saying that women who are stay-at-home moms or homemakers do not work. Perhaps we can say they are unemployed. They are not being paid by an outside employer. They do in fact work. And despite, again, the narratives that the only work that matters is the work that you do for someone else's company, someone else's business, lining the pockets of someone else, that work is valuable. But the work at home in raising kids who are intelligent, emotionally intelligent, self-aware, care about their community, that work is not valuable, right? That work, because no one's paying you to do it, right? How could we possibly have any respect for a job that no one's paying us for? Okay. All right. So the first step in understanding what kind of homemaker you are, what kind of homemaker you would like to be. And, I'm using these terms because let's just call a spade, okay? The way that creating content online works is that you have to choose titles, words for thumbnails and titles of videos or blog posts that are searchable, that help people connect. You have to distill the idea down to its most simplistic form in order to pull out words that will allow you to generate an applicable title and thumbnail that is also interesting and sort of garners the right place in the algorithm. Just like how writers, when they write articles, right, oftentimes they actually get no say in what the title of the article is, because guess who does? Their editor, someone at the paper, the company that is going to choose what is likely going to be the most salacious piece or part of the piece that they've written. Oftentimes you see a title and you click it and you're like, that feels like it had absolutely nothing to do with the article, but that's the way the news world works. So these writers who feel sometimes a little bit self-righteous in their, condemning of even the term housewife or homemaker, understand that just like they are, we are forced to oversimplify at times how we are describing things in order to get our content out there, just like everyone else is, right? It's just the way that business in general works. When we are attempting to decode and understand what kind of homemaker we desire to be, just like any other career or ambition, you often are going to look to those who've gone before you. You're going to look for inspiration in various places. Maybe you had a great role model in your own mother or grandmother or a female in your life that's who you are looking to for inspiration. We also know that in the age of social media and the way that things operate today, a lot of people find their inspiration and their sources of, sort of just information in general about things online. One thing you have to be very careful of, just like with anything else, and I trust that you are not a moron, so I assume that you are capable of handling this, is that you can look at things and typically deduce what the intent is. Is the intent of this to be aesthetically pleasing? Is just to have kind of this overall aesthetic? Is the intent of this to teach me something? Is the intent of this to inspire me, encourage me? What's the intent, right? So if you are perhaps following some of these creators online who maybe have a bit more of a hot take, if you will, on being a homemaker, I'm guessing that you can probably see through some of what is often a bit of a, lipstick on a pig, right? It's perfectly fine to use those people for inspiration in your own life, but understanding that we are not attempting to become carbon copies of someone else. And just like I always tell you, in everything when it comes to online content that you consume, 99% of the time, you are only seeing what that person wants you to see. And the rest of it is not all of, but a lot of the bad stuff, hard stuff is hidden beneath the surface. And for various reasons, which we're not going to go into in today's video, right or wrong, that is the way that online content works for everybody. It's not just exclusive to influencers or content creators. Anybody who shares online has this level of, here's what I share, here's the stuff I don't. Here's what I talk about, here's the stuff I don't. The level to which it's manipulative or misleading varies. Honing our own self-confidence and who we are and what we're doing is going to help us to cut through the noise of what we see someone else doing. It is very important that we maintain an authentic version of ourselves while we are still able to glean some inspiration from others that we find. The next step is to think about your own natural inclinations and attributes, the things that you are naturally good at, and understanding that despite what perhaps some people would have you believe, There's many different ways to be a homemaker. And so maybe cooking meals from scratch is something that you're already really good at, something that matters to you for whatever reason, or a skill that you are really interested in learning more about. All of those are fine. Believing that you must cook from scratch, you must have a robust garden, you must be milking a cow every morning, you must be dressed in 1950s garb, all of these things are not at all on the requirement list for being a good homemaker. Being a good homemaker is not about possessing every skill out there, mastering every skill out there, dressing a certain way, looking a certain way. It's about your role as a caretaker of your home and family. And I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Probably not, though, if you've got more than a peanut rattling around in a shell for a brain, is that you don't have to be a stay-at-home mom to be a homemaker. Insane to think that working outside the home is not mutually exclusive to being also a homemaker. Okay, so see, what we've done here is conflate a lot of these terms, mix them up, intertwine them, and decide that A must then lead to X over there, right? Like we take some circuitous route to get us logically from the idea that caring for your home and your family, whether that be cooking nutritious meals, how you decorate, hosting, general childcare, homeschooling, God forbid, that all of these things make you some kind of zombie, Stepford wife, unintellectual idiot. So I'm going to tell you, your skills and your hobbies are going to evolve and change over time, starting with a list of some of the things that you are naturally good at, some of the hobbies or interests that you have, perhaps skills that you want to learn. But I think it's equally as important to be aware of the things that you are not interested in, that you don't really care at this point to be a part of the overall ethos of your home and who you are and the life that you are trying to cultivate, right? So you may never desire to, butcher your own chickens. You may never desire to take care of a sourdough starter. You may never desire to, keep one of those fancy, expensive stoves that's always on. I can't remember the name of it. It's like a AG something. I don't even know. See what a terrible homemaker I am. I don't even know the different stove brands. Clutch your pearls. But one of those fancy ones that's always on all the time. I have no desire to babysit that. And here's what's wild, okay? I have lots of friends who are homemakers. One of my friends, she has no microwave, no dishwasher, and I am like, how on earth do you do that? I respect it, but I've got no desire to get rid of my microwave or my dishwasher. We're friends, right? Like we don't judge each other based on those things. And I understand that what she values is different than what I value. So the type of homemaker that I'm going to be is not the same as her. And guess what else? I can see her share about that stuff, talk about that stuff, talk about why it matters to her, why it's important to her, without feeling like it's an indictment on my decision to have and use a microwave. We know what matters to us. We know what doesn't. Here's some questions that you can ask yourself to try to help kind of narrow down, because maybe for you, all of the input is too much. So you need to unfollow people who really lean heavily into one style of homemaking, and you feel pressure, right? Maybe you don't feel strong enough yet in your own, kind of owning authentically who you are, that you can take the stance of good for her, not for me. So you may need to or want to unfollow some people for a time while you get your footing and can feel confident in what you're doing and not doing. So some of the questions that I think are important to ask yourself is, number one, what are your priorities right now? I am a very different homemaker now than I was 10 years ago. Okay, I have 8 children. I work. I know, shocking. We have a sort of mini hobby farm thing. I just have very different priorities right now. I have an interest in learning old-fashioned skills that I believe are skills that are worth knowing. I hope that we will never be in a position that we need to know them for survival, but I can't promise that we won't. So to me, it's valuable skills to learn, right? Like, do I need to learn how to do some stupid dance for TikTok, or would I rather learn how to hem my curtains and do some basic sewing so that I don't have to outsource everything, right? For me, skill building is not about fetishizing the old way of doing things without recognizing that a lot of those things were done because people were poor and they didn't have other options, right? I'm not fetishizing that. I'm valuing the knowledge and how having various skills and skill sets not only makes you a more well-rounded person capable of many things. And guess what? As a female, I value feeling capable, whether that is using the power tools or driving the tractor or sewing something or baking bread. All of those are valuable skills to me. And again, none of them are skills that I use my private parts for. So to me, they very much fall into the realm of valuable skills that I can use should I want to, and will have should I need them. The next question you might want to ask is, what does your daily life currently look like, and what do you want it to look like? I love the idea of like dreaming big, right? In an ideal world, what would you want it to look like? But it's also important that we stay rooted in reality. So if your vision of what you want your life to look like involves a 500-acre ranch and your husband's a firefighter and you're a stay-at-home mom, that's likely not going to be part of your story. So it's fairly important to, create goals that are realistic, right? That's part of the SMART goals philosophy, is that these goals need to be realistic. So when you think about what do you want your day to look like, I just mean taking a look at how you're currently spending your days and what you're doing with your time. And is that advancing what you are wanting as far as, your goals or your visions for yourself and your family? If you know that you really want to and need to cut back your grocery budget, you want to start making more like freezer meals and just being more creative with cooking and figuring out how to not have to meal plan so much and just be able to kind of grab stuff and throw together a meal, right? You want to learn to cook better. Maybe if you're spending an hour a day scrolling Instagram or TikTok or even watching YouTube videos or reading pointless articles online, that maybe that hour would better be spent in the kitchen practicing, trying new things, testing out new recipes, working on freezer meals, perfecting your skills or honing your skills if you have none to begin with, and doing things that are moving you towards your ultimate goal of what you want your life and your day and your time to look like. The next question I would encourage you to consider is, what do I like about my life and what do I want to change, right? So the good news is that we do have choice. At least at this point, we still have choice. We still have freedom to decide how we want our lives to look and what we want our days to look like. So what is it about your life right now that you really like? What is it that you don't like? What do you want to change? So if you know, for example, that, your kids are all getting ready to be in school next year and you want to consider going back to teaching or, back to being a dental hygienist or, whatever it is that you maybe did before kids, or maybe once your kids are in school, you want to get back into the workforce in some other way. So this would be a great time to start thinking about, all right, well, do I need to take some online classes? Is there something I could be doing in the evening that's going to move me towards that goal? And conversely, if you are maybe working in one of those jobs and you want to be home, you don't want to be in that workforce, it's a great time to look at those goals and say, all right, what would I need to do in order for that to happen? What do I need to do within our home, finances, whatever? Start talking to your husband, start figuring out what that would look like, if it would be possible, and how you could make it happen. It's a matter of not sitting in well, it is what it is. I don't have a choice. You do have a choice, and there are very often many different paths to get you there. It's just a matter of getting honest about it and being willing to make the sacrifices, because no matter what you choose, there are sacrifices. And despite all of the rhetoric about being a boss babe, at the end of the day, everyone is making sacrifices. That female CEO or that poor, sad, stay-at-home mom, it doesn't matter what spin you put on it. Everyone is making sacrifices. And I say this, I feel like in nearly every video, but nobody is getting out of this life without regrets. So your job is to choose your regrets. Don't let them be chosen for you. If you know that ultimately you will regret not being the one to raise your children, if you know that you'll regret putting them in daycare, then it's your job then to figure out how you can avoid that regret. What sacrifices are necessary for that to happen? I normally caveat these things with I know it's not possible for everybody. I'm going to trust that you are smart enough to understand that sometimes we are in situations that we don't and cannot just get out of quickly. But oftentimes there's baby steps. There's things that we can do to change our circumstance. I find it much more helpful to encourage people to do that rather than to say, you're right, you don't have any choice. Your life is miserable and you're just going to regret it and good luck with that. No, it's just that you have to choose what you are willing to regret and make your life choices based on that. There are lots of things that are going to happen to us, right, that we might not have any control over. But we have agency, we have choice, and choosing our regrets, choosing what we can live with is still within our abilities at this point. That is my advice and encouragement as somebody who has had to do this for myself over the years, as particularly in the last 2 years, make a lot of choices that never make their way online. Things that, following me online, you would have no idea, right? Because those are intimate things about my life. They're not things that I'm going to share with the public. And so understanding that nobody gets away from that, right? It's like death and taxes, right? You can't get out of either one of them. And regrets you can't get out of, but choose them and choose them wisely. This video has massively changed from what I intended for it to be, with my pages of notes and some of the more cutesy, fun, lighthearted things I wanted to share with you about being more of a minimalist homemaker or an old-fashioned homemaker. And I wanted to share with you some of those cute things, but just to be honest with you, I felt in my heart that this conversation was far more important to have with you today. In parting, I would leave you with the reminders that you have to choose your regrets in life, and nobody else online is going to suffer the feeling of regret with you. It's a feeling you will suffer alone. So you cannot make those decisions based on what you see other people online doing or narratives that you hear. That feeling, that regret feeling, it lives purely inside of you, and you are the only one who has to deal with the consequences of it. And secondly, as important as it is to find inspiration and know what you want in life, right? We've got to know where you're going. It's just as important to know what you don't want, what doesn't matter to you, what you don't value, and what you refuse to waste your time on.